A young girl was acting strangely nervous around her dad in the clinic's waiting area. And when the doctor took an X-ray, what he saw made him call 911 immediately. It was a quiet evening at El Camino Community Health Clinic, a small, modest clinic located 15 miles from the US-Mexico border in a dusty town with high traffic of migrants and transients. Faded beige walls and outdated medical posters gave the clinic a weathered appearance that matched its surroundings. The fluorescent lights buzzed overhead, casting a harsh glow across the worn linoleum floors. The clinic was understaffed, with only a limited number of doctors and a few nurses on duty during late shifts. It was 9 p.m., and Dr. Rafael Mendez, an internist with 12 years of experience in border healthcare, had just finished with a patient. He walked the elderly woman toward the door, providing final instructions about her medication regimen. His nurse assistant, Carla Soto, helped the elderly woman toward the pharmacy section. Nurse Carla was efficient and observant, qualities that made her invaluable in this understaffed clinic. She had worked alongside Dr. Rafael for 3 years, and they had developed an unspoken understanding and rhythm to their work. Dr. Rafael glanced at the waiting room to check how many patients he had next. He saw only a father-daughter pair who looked like immigrants. The father, a man in his early 40s with a weathered face and calloused hands, was holding a newspaper. His eyes darted nervously around the room, never settling in one place for too long. The girl, who appeared to be around 12 years old, sat quietly beside him, but in a rather defensive posture, hunched over slightly with her arms wrapped around her midsection, her face occasionally contorted in a grimace, as if she was in pain. She wore a simple pink t-shirt and matching pants that hung loosely on her small frame. Dr. Rafael went back to the examination room without greeting the patients yet, waiting for his nurse to confirm their administration. He sat behind his computer desk to finish some paperwork, the report of the previous patient, and waited for his nurse assistant. Through the thin walls, he could hear the muffled sounds of the clinic, phones ringing at the front desk, the hum of the air conditioning system struggling against the desert heat, and the occasional cough from the waiting area. When Nurse Carla arrived, she immediately informed him of his new patient while sanitizing the room, bed, and equipment. Her movements were practiced as she sprayed disinfectant and wiped down surfaces. "Dr. Mendez," she said quietly, leaning closer so her voice wouldn't carry beyond the room. "I think there's something off about the new walk-in pair." She glanced toward the door before continuing. "They're new patients here, haven't been to this clinic before, they have no IDs." She continued wiping down the examination table as she spoke. "The father seems overprotective of the daughter, barely lets her speak, and the daughter—" Nurse Carla paused, her brow furrowing. "She looks like she's in pain. When I offered her water earlier, the father sternly refused, speaking for her. It was, strange." Nurse Carla disposed of the used wipes and turned to face Dr. Rafael. "Do you still want to accept this patient? We could refer them elsewhere if you're concerned." Dr. Rafael considered this for a moment. He had grown up in the area and had experience in border health emergencies. He understood the dark realities around the border, but still tried to make a difference, one patient at a time. "We have no other patients right now, and my shift doesn't end for 3 hours," he said, running a hand through his thick black hair as he eyed the clock on the wall and noted there were still a few hours until the end of his shift, which ended at 11:45 p.m. "Besides, the patient is a child and she's obviously in pain. I can't turn her away." Something in his gut told him this girl needed help, and as a doctor, he couldn't ignore that. He had seen too many cases of abuse and exploitation in this border town, and the thought of turning away someone in need went against everything he believed in. Nurse Carla nodded in understanding. She finished her sanitation task and went to the door. She called the patient in, and from the gap, "Doctor." Raphael saw how the father seemed overbearing, not letting the girl out of his sight. He constantly clutched the girl's wrist and whispered to her, while the girl kept glancing at the exit sign of the clinic, her eyes wide with what appeared to be fear. The father-daughter pair entered the room, the man's grip on the girl's wrist visibly tightening as they crossed the threshold. Nurse Carla greeted them with a professional smile, that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Good evening," she said, gesturing to the examination space. "I'll need to take your daughter's vitals first before Dr. Mendez examines her." The father, a stocky man with dark, wary eyes, spoke before the girl could respond. "She has a simple stomach bug," he said gruffly, his accent thick. "She just needs something to settle it. Nothing complicated." The girl, Lucia, stood silently beside him. She looked pale, almost ashen, with a thin sheen of sweat on her forehead. Her eyes were downcast, deliberately avoiding eye contact with both the nurse and doctor. Her small hands trembled slightly as they rested at her sides. Nurse Carla maintained her professional demeanor. "I understand, sir, but we still need to follow procedure. All patients require a basic vital check before seeing the doctor." The father looked as though he might object further, but then gave a curt nod, releasing the girl's wrist reluctantly. Nurse Carla gestured for Lucia to sit on a chair near the vital monitoring equipment. "Lucia, I'm going to check your blood pressure, oxygen levels and weight, okay?" The girl nodded almost imperceptibly and sat down. As Nurse Carla wrapped the blood pressure cuff around her thin arm, Dr. Raphael noticed how the girl winced slightly at the pressure. Miguel stood nearby, watching every move with hawk-like intensity. After completing the measurements, Nurse Carla noted down the numbers and delivered the chart to Dr. Raphael. He studied the details quietly, noting that the girl's blood pressure was slightly elevated, likely from stress, and her oxygen saturation was at the lower end of the normal range. Most concerning was her weight, which fell below the 15th percentile for her age. "Lucia," Dr. Raphael said gently, "I'd like to examine you in the exam space. It will just take a few minutes." Miguel immediately stepped forward. "I'm coming with my daughter." Dr. Raphael maintained a calm, professional tone. "Mr. Alvarez, you're welcome to stay in the room, but I need to examine Lucia privately. You can sit right here and wait." He gestured to a chair just a few feet away from the examination area. Miguel's jaw tightened, and for a moment Dr. Raphael thought he might refuse. Finally, with obvious reluctance, Miguel nodded and sat down, his eyes never leaving his daughter. Lucia hesitantly followed Dr. Raphael to the examination bed and climbed up with visible discomfort. Dr. Raphael drew the privacy curtain, creating a thin barrier between them and Miguel, though they could still see his silhouette through the fabric. "Lie down, please, Lucia," Dr. Raphael instructed softly. "I need to examine your abdomen." The girl complied silently, her eyes wide with apprehension. Dr. Raphael gently lifted just enough of her shirt to expose her abdomen. He noted immediately that her skin appeared taut across her stomach, with slight distension in the upper quadrants. As he began the basic abdominal palpation, Lucia winced and flinched in pain. Her stomach felt rigid in certain areas, abnormally so for a simple stomach bug. When he pressed gently on the right upper quadrant, she bit her lip to stifle a cry. "Does it hurt here?" he asked, pressing lightly near her liver. "Yes," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Do you feel bloated, Lucia?" Another whispered, "Yes. How's your appetite? Have you been eating normally?" She shook her head slightly. "What was the last thing you ate and when?" "Water. Just water yesterday," she murmured, glancing nervously toward the curtain as if afraid her father might hear. Dr. Raphael maintained a neutral expression despite his growing concern. The girl's behavior was alarming, but not entirely surprising. He had seen countless young children who were overly controlled by adults in this area. Near the border, it was a dangerous place to live, and many parents, especially immigrant parents, were strict out of necessity and fear. However, the abdominal rigidity concerned him greatly. Parts of her stomach were harder than others, suggesting a potential obstruction or foreign bodies. He kept his expression neutral and professional as he completed the examination, then opened the curtain again. Miguel immediately stood up, his posture tense. "Well, it's just a stomach bug, right? Give us some medicine so we can go." Dr. Raphael exchanged a quick glance with Nurse Carla before addressing Miguel. "Mr. Alvarez, I found some abnormal abdominal rigidity and unexplained pain. I need to order an X-ray just to be safe." Miguel's face darkened. X-ray? We don't need anything fancy like that. Just give us some medicine. I can't do that, Dr. Raphael said firmly. I can't prescribe medication without knowing the source of the pain. X-rays are routinely used to detect abnormalities inside the digestive tract. He paused, then added, Additionally, Lucia appears dehydrated. Look at how she's perspiring despite the cool room temperature, and her severely chapped lips. He gestured to Nurse Carla. Could you bring Lucia a cup of water, please? Before Nurse Carla could move, Miguel cut in. Fine, do the X-ray, whatever, just do it quickly. When Nurse Carla returned with water, she offered it to Lucia. The girl glanced quickly at her father, then refused in a whisper, avoiding eye contact. Dr. Raphael handed Miguel some paperwork detailing the X-ray procedure. Please take this to the radiology section. Nurse Carla will show you the way. Come back to see me after the X-ray is completed. He noticed Lucia had difficulty walking, slouching and holding her stomach in obvious pain. Carla, let's get Lucia a wheelchair. The nurse quickly retrieved one, and Lucia sat down with relief evident on her face. As Nurse Carla began to push the wheelchair out of the room, Dr. Raphael watched Miguel's tense posture and the way his eyes darted nervously around the clinic. Something was very wrong here, and the X-ray would hopefully reveal what it was. Dr. Raphael checked if he had another patient to take while waiting for the X-ray result, but the waiting room was empty. The small clinic was quiet at this hour, with only the occasional sound of the air conditioning system cycling on and off breaking the silence. Feeling uneasy about the Alvarez case, he left his examination room and walked down the corridor to the radiology section. The clinic's radiology department was modest, just one room with basic equipment that could handle common diagnostic imaging needs. As he approached, he saw Miguel waiting outside the room, pacing nervously while speaking on his phone in hushed Spanish. The man's face was tense, his free hand clenched into a fist at his side. When Miguel spotted Dr. Raphael, he quickly ended his call, his expression hardening into a cold, stern mask. Dr. Raphael nodded politely toward him. Mr. Alvarez, it's safer to do phone calls a distance away from the door, he said, pointing further down the corridor. The equipment can sometimes be affected by cellular signals. Miguel narrowed his eyes but moved away as instructed, still watching Dr. Raphael intently. Dr. Raphael entered the radiology room, where a technician named Marco was preparing Lucia for the scan. The girl lay still on the table, her face pale and drawn with pain. Marco looked up as Dr. Raphael entered. Just about to start, doctor, he said. Dr. Raphael nodded and stepped back as Marco positioned the equipment. Lucia, I need you to stay completely still for a moment, Marco instructed through the microphone. The girl nodded slightly, her eyes wide with fear. The machine hummed to life, capturing the internal image of Lucia's abdomen. As they waited for the image to process, Dr. Raphael thought he heard a whisper from the table. Please, don't take me. The words were so soft, almost indistinguishable over the whirring of the X-ray machine. Marco glanced at Dr. Raphael, his brow furrowed in confusion. He wasn't sure what the girl meant, and her voice was too low to clearly make out the words against the background noise. Lucia, we need to stay very still, Marco said into the microphone again. We'll need to retake the image. After the second attempt, the digital image appeared on the computer screen. Both Dr. Raphael and Marco leaned forward, their expressions changing from professional neutrality to shock. The X-ray revealed dozens of oval, dense shapes throughout Lucia's gastrointestinal tract. The foreign bodies were uniform in size and density, clearly not natural to her anatomy. Dr. Raphael immediately recognized what they were seeing. Drug pellets. Someone had forced this child to swallow packages of drugs for smuggling. Marco, send the digital copy to my computer immediately, Dr. Raphael said urgently, his voice low. Marco nodded, his face grim as he transferred the files. Dr. Raphael exited the room, passing Miguel, who was still on his phone, now speaking more urgently in Spanish. Their eyes met briefly, and Dr. Raphael forced himself to maintain a neutral expression despite the rage and disgust building inside him. He returned quickly to his office and checked his email for the X-ray files. Opening them on his screen, he examined the images in detail. There were at least 3 dozen drug pellets visible throughout Lucia's digestive tract. Most concerning was that one of the pellets appeared to be leaking, explaining the girl's pain and the danger she was in. If that package had ruptured, she could be experiencing a potentially fatal overdose. Dr. Raphael searched online medical databases, confirming what he already suspected. The images matched documented cases of body packing, the practice of swallowing sealed packages of illegal drugs for smuggling. Most cases involved adults, but there were horrifying instances of children being used as drug mules because they attracted less suspicion from authorities. Leaning back in his chair, Dr. Raphael pinched the bridge of his nose, feeling a wave of anger and helplessness. Lucia was being exploited, her life endangered for drug trafficking. He thought how Miguel was probably not her father, but a handler using her to smuggle drugs across the border. He glanced through the small window in his office door and noticed that Miguel and Lucia had not yet returned from radiology. This was his chance. He picked up the phone and dialed 911, keeping his voice low and urgent. "This is Dr. Rafael Mendez at El Camino Community Health Clinic. I have a child patient who has been forced to ingest multiple drug packages for smuggling. One package appears to be leaking. I need police and medical transport immediately. The handler is still in the building." He provided a description of Miguel and Lucia, emphasizing the immediate danger to the child's life if the leaking drug package fully ruptured. "Please hurry," he added. "I believe they may attempt to leave once they realize I've discovered the drugs." As he hung up the phone, Dr. Raphael steeled himself for what would come next. The most important thing was keeping Lucia safe and getting her the emergency medical care she needed before the leaking drug package claimed her life. After the phone call, Dr. Raphael walked out of his office and into the corridor, intending to check if Miguel and Lucia had returned from radiology. He was surprised to see that another patient, an elderly man with a cane, had arrived in the waiting room. The clinic's night receptionist was helping him fill out forms, but Dr. Raphael knew he needed to handle the urgent situation with Lucia first. He approached the patient administration desk near the nurse station to inform them of the situation. Several nurses, sensing something was wrong, began to gather as he spoke in hushed tones. "I've called 911, he explained to the head nurse. "We have a child who's been forced to swallow drug packages. One appears to be leaking. Police are on their way, but we need to be careful not to alarm the handler." The nurses exchanged concerned glances, their expressions a mixture of shock and determination. Just as Dr. Raphael was explaining the need for emergency medical intervention, he noticed movement from the corner of his eye. Miguel and Lucia were walking past the administration desk, escorted by Nurse Carla. Miguel's eyes narrowed as he observed the group of staff members huddled in serious conversation, their concerned faces turned toward him. Lucia, looking even paler than before, kept her gaze fixed on the floor. Nurse Carla, unaware of what Dr. Raphael had discovered, smiled politely. "The X-ray is complete. I told them to wait in the waiting area while the images are reviewed." Dr. Raphael nodded, trying to appear casual. "Thank you, Carla. I'll be with them shortly." As Nurse Carla led Miguel and Lucia toward the waiting area, Dr. Raphael quickly pulled her aside and whispered the situation. Her eyes widened in shock, and she couldn't entirely suppress her reaction when she glanced back at Miguel. It was enough. Miguel, already suspicious, noticed the exchange. His posture changed instantly, from tense to alert, his eyes darting between Dr. Raphael, the nurses, and the clinic exits. In one swift motion, Miguel grabbed Lucia's arm roughly and pulled her toward the side exit door. The elderly patient in the waiting room shouted in alarm, "Hey! What are you doing to that child?" "Stop them!" Dr. Raphael called out, running after them. 2 male nurses joined the pursuit, but Miguel was surprisingly fast. He shoved through the side door, practically dragging Lucia, who stumbled and cried out in pain. By the time Dr. Raphael and the nurses reached the parking lot, Miguel had forced Lucia into a waiting car, that immediately screeched away, tires spinning on the gravel. "Did anyone get the license plate?" Dr. Raphael asked desperately, but no one had